So, Zach is azoi. So going into Purim, there's first of all, anyone has any questions, I've not mischayev b'chlal to answer anything, but I'll we could work on it together. So I want to first address something that I spoke about in my psiche for the Megillah in Yiddish. So if you heard that, then it's shtikl chazara. But I think it's one of the most fundamental questions that you could ask in the Megillah, and everyone asks, and I'm going to answer the same test that everyone answers also. It's just, I want to understand the Indian. Now, anyone that opens the Megillah is bothered by the fact that Hashem's name is not there. And the problem, whatever you're going to answer about Hashem's name not being there, my problem is not so much that Hashem's name is not on the Megillah. The problem is that Hashem's name represents something. And that's not in the Megillah. Right? Hashem's name is not only when you call him by his name. Fine, it's ein Zach. Okay. But if you have the question is, when you pick up a Megillah, and you see that this Megillah is in Tanach, so this means that this is in the Sifrei HaKodesh. Stories in Sifrei HaKodesh have a certain framework. And if they don't have that framework, then they don't belong in Sifrei HaKodesh. It's like you have a Machanayim books, right? You have these Machanayim books. All Machanayim books have the same theme. There's a guy that has a Torah, there's a tzaddik. Yeah, that's sort of the idea of the Machanayim books. You don't know the Machanayim, the blue books, the blue little books, the tales of tzaddikim. Now, that's the idea of these books, right? So if you have a book that doesn't have a tzaddik mentioned, it's weird, right? Because it doesn't belong in the set. Now, maybe you don't have a tzaddik, but you have a nace, so then it can make it in. Because fine, the guy's not mentioned by name. But stam to have a p'samaisela, kashim pshat. The problem with the story of the Megillah isn't only that there's no Shem Hashem. The problem is that there's no Yiddishkeit in the story. It's a goyish story. And that's mamash infuriating because it should get you very upset. There's one thing if Hashem's name is not mentioned. You know what else is not mentioned? Klal Yisrael, there's Gzera Kloya on Klal Yisrael. Kloya means every last Yid is going to die. Why? Why? For nothing. There's no reason. The reason that the Megillah gives is because Mordechai and Haman had a personal fight. Now, I could hear, that makes sense in a way, not in a Jewish way though. In Yiddishkeit, it's a wrong. There's no such thing in Yiddishkeit. If Mordechai and Haman have their little fight, you're not going to have 6 million Eden die. It doesn't work. Now, why did the Gzera go away? Now, I'm assuming it was a Gzera because I have very Yiddish lenses on the way I look at history. But the Megillah doesn't see it as a Gzera. The Megillah sees it as... Megillah doesn't see it as Gzera and Hashemayim. So you have Mordechai and Haman have their thingy going on between them. And the collateral damage is that all of the Yidden are going to die because of that. Now, how does it go away? Because of Esther's Shmedrai, whatever she did over there. Is there a tikkun on the Avera that they did? Now, it's very difficult to know because I don't know what the Avera was because the Megillah didn't tell me the Avera because the Megillah is talking in some foreign language. So, everyone's very focused on the fact that Hashem's name is not on the Megillah. Hashem's name is the least of our problems. The problem with the Megillah is is a Freya story. It's not a Jewish story, b'chlal. Look for the Judaism in the Megillah. It's come out not there. To the point that we can have a conversation about why Mordechai didn't bow to Haman. It doesn't say in the Megillah. No, I was. It's even a Chazal. You have a shtikl deya that it was a personal fight. He was his Eved and he didn't want to bow to his Eved. The problem with the story is that it's lacking anything you would expect the Sefer of Tanach to have. And that is, first of all, a message. What's the message? Could you tell me, for heaven's sake, what's the message of the story of the Megillah? The Megillah ends that they all lived happily ever after. No, Ivachai. What's wegen dem Bos? What's the maskuna? Kimeros the maskuna. Now, whatever maskuna we're going to say, why didn't Megillah say it? Everyone has a maskuna. And there's some of them that are obvious. Now, so say it. What are you afraid to say it? And now, that's where you see the Chazal, in Megillah, you have a few blot over there, where Chazal dissect every part of the Megillah, and they're bothered by these problems. And that's why they read a whole lot into the Megillah. Now, I'm okay with that. But again, the fundamental question is, why doesn't the Megillah share with me that there was a Nehenu Mesados Shalai Rosh? Sheshtach v'letzelem. Sheshtach v'letzelem, if I could say the story of the Megillah, I would start the story with the fact that Klal Yisrael worshipped over the Zohar. No, it's a capital offense. And in the chinuch that we know from Tanach, there's a cause and effect, and there's consequences. And therefore, if Klal Yisrael worships over the Zohar, then a couple of years down the line, it's going to catch up with you, and everyone would understand that. It would be beautiful. And there's Xer, and then there's tshuva, right? There's no tshuva. Soimu alai. Even the only time when you could maybe say that there's some Judaism, because Klal Yisrael are fasting for 3 days, they're not fasting for tshuva. Soimu alai, whatever that means. Soimu alai, I'll tell you just what does that mean? She doesn't even say the word daven. Think about it. Martin Luther, the Reformation guy. So one of his big projects was that he translated the Bible into German. In those days, the way that the church held control of, like, their grasp on the masses, was because they controlled the Bible. The Bible was only in Latin. Clergy knew Latin. Your average guy didn't know, he spoke German, Polish, or whatever. And the way that really they had control of the Zach is that you don't know, if you need salvation, you have to come to me, right? It's a way of manipulating the masses, you can have control over the masses. So part of his merid in the church was that he translated the Bible to German. And all reformers in that Kufa, in that 100 years, it was that was like the biggest pagia, that, make it available to everyone and let everyone see, Anyway, so he was very into his Bible. Lamaisa, he was furious with the Book of Esther. He didn't like it at all. There's a memoir that one of his Mishamshim wrote. It's called Table Talks. And there, you see, Mama says, I hate the Book of Esther. It doesn't belong in the Bible. It's a romance. There's nothing spiritual about it. Finished. And he goes on and on about how he doesn't like it. And if you look at it objectively, the guy has a point. He not only has a point, I think what he's correctly learning is what a story in the Bible is supposed to look like. Because, and that, fine. Now, in the Gemara, there's an interessante Sache. In the Gemara, there's a big shala if Esther metames yadayim or not. Now, what's pshat in this question? Now, the pshat in this question is really if Esther's part of Tanach, right? Because Sifrei Kodesh are metames yadayim. So the question is if Esther's metames yadayim. Now, the Gemara says that when Esther wrote Megillah Esther, Anshe Knesset Gedolah didn't want to be Mekabel the Sefer. That's it. We're done. Ksavti lecha sheleishim, sheleishim v'le'rebeim. That's it. You're out. And she fought her way in. She mamish fought her way in. To the point that you have all Ahmed in the Gemara over there, that the Gemara looks for rayas, like mamish little rayas, the Esther Baruch HaKodesh name. Why is it so important? You have a Gemara that goes fishing for psukim in the Mishlei of Baruch HaKodesh name. Obviously Baruch HaKodesh name. If not, Mishlei wouldn't be in Tanach. Right? So what this Gemara really is doing is the Gemara is convincing itself, and whoever is listening, that really Esther belongs to Tanach. It's not so posh. Right? Meaning, we know that there's a controversy. So now we're going to find that Esther's B'racha Kodesh, and if it's B'racha Kodesh, then it belongs to Kizvah Kodesh. So there's a struggle. Esther Sof Kalanism, right? Esther Sof Kalanism. It's the closing Qumran are the caves near in the Dead Sea where they found all the Dead Sea Scrolls. So there they found fragments of all Sefer Kodesh and many that are not Sefer Kodesh, Svarim Chitzonim. We have to talk about Svarim Chitzonim, but not for now. Svarim Chitzonim basically are the Svarim that Eden wrote that didn't make the cut. That's really what Svarim Chitzonim are. The Svarim Panimim and Svarim Chitzonim. That's what Svarim Chitzonim mean in its very definition of the word. Right? There's, in Mishnayos, there's Mishnayos and Braises. What does a Braise mean? The word Braise in Aramaic means outside. The Gav and the Bar, right? The Gav means inside, the Bar means outside. So Braise means outside because there's Mishnayos that made the cut, and then there's whatever was on the cutting floor, and those are Braises because they're out of the canon of Mishnayos. Now, Svarim Chitzonim in the same way. Svarim Chitzonim are Svarim that were written by Yidden in Lashon Kodesh, meant to be, in the spirit of Tanach, and there was a board that decided what made the cut and what didn't. Right? The error of this board is the Anshe Knesset Gdala. So it probably didn't happen in 5 minutes. This is a tkufa, but the Anshe Knesset Gdala were the beginning of Bayis Sheni. So they were meaning these are Ezra and Nehemiah and Mordechai. They're all part of the Anshe Knesset Gdala, and they decided what's part of Tanach and what's the book of this is much later, but the book of Judith, let's say, Sefer Yehudas, which is in the Apocrypha, which is in the Svarim Chitzonim and in the Lahavdil and the Catholic canon, and the books of Maccabees and the books of Chanoich and Ezra Hasheni, many Yovelim, many books that were written by Yidden in the Tkufa Bayis Sheni that were rejected by Chazal, they were rejected by Anshe Knesset Gdala, and they're called Svarim Chitzonim. Ben Sira, for instance, right? These are Svarim Chitzonim. Now again, these Svarim are good Svarim, many of them. Some of them are garbage, but some of them are decent Svarim. Ben Sira is a sefer that's quoted by Chazal many times. And it's not a bad sefer. It's just the problem of learning Ben Sira, and this is the problem why someone that learns Svarim Chitzonim and Chek Madam Abba, which I don't think there's Noig Bizman Hazeh, is because the problem with learning Svarim Chitzonim is in a tkufa, again, you have to go back in time, where the only things that are written are the canonized Svarim. Nothing else is allowed to be written. Right? There's no Torah Sheba'al Peh written. So the only thing that's allowed to be written down is whatever we decide, we meaning the people in charge, whatever we decide made the cut. So if you copy something written in Lashon Kodesh in the same style as Tanach, and you copy it, then you're a problem, right? Because you're trying to bring things that we rejected into the fold. So that's why someone that reads Svarim Chitzonim, like Ben Sira, which Ben Sira technically could have made it. It's not that different than Mishlei in many ways. So, because he could have made the cut, that's why it's such a problem to read Svarim Chitzonim. That's why today I think, if you read Harry Potter, you can read Ben Sira, no problem. Now, how did we get into this? Oh, so in Qumran, in these caves near the Dead Sea, where they found all these Gevaldige Svarim, they found a lot of stuff. Mamish Mori, they preserved 2,000 years. They found remnants of all Chof Dalet Sefer Kodesh, besides for Esther. Nothing from Esther, which is fascinating. Now again, Lematzino NRI, maybe they did have, maybe they didn't. And they weren't exactly what we would call rabbinic Jews anyway, but they were Yidden, like ultra from Yidden Bayis Sheni, like way over the top from. But they, I guess, were part of a cult that didn't accept Esther. Now we know that in the Tanam, there were Tanam that the Tanam obviously accepted it because they read it on Purim and they made a bracha on it, but they didn't hold that it's part of Tanach, right? Lamaisa, we're past that, right? It's one of the Chof Dalet Sefer Kodesh, and Esther fought her way in. It was written Baruch HaKodesh. So it was, look, Esther got her the wish. It was the mitzvah of reading the Megillah Purim was accepted all the way back. So throughout Ba'asheni. Now in the Megillah, now again, in the end of the Megillah, the part where everyone falls asleep because there's no homins anymore and just a whole bunch of dates, again, 14 or 13 or 15, and again and again and again and again. That is really where a big part of the struggle is, where Esther is sending letters again and again, and they're revising the Megillah. It's a very, very interesting program, like to really learn through. But the point is that Esther is fighting her way to be, let me write this down. In a period when you're not allowed to write anything down, let me write this down. Now, we have to understand that tkufa a little, because forget about that tkufa. In the uniqueness of Esther, besides the fact that there's no Shem Hashem, there's no Nes in the story, no Nes. It's not a single event in the entire Megillah that you could call a Nes. Not a single event, nothing. I challenge you, find me one thing in the Megillah that didn't happen somewhere today. Doesn't say in the Megillah.
He's saying Gemara not included.
Not included.
Just text.
Text of the Megillah, there's not a single Nes. So, that's what I mean, that it's not a Jewish story, okay? There's no Hashem's name. There's no Nes. There's no Schar V'Oinish, right? There's no divine judgment, right? There's nothing. That's A. B, what another thing that's unique about Esther is that it happens in Chutz La'aretz. We don't have another Sefer Tanach written from beginning to end of Chutz La'aretz, besides for the Torah. The Nil is, you're right, the Nil is also written in Chutz La'aretz. Now, the Nil is written in Chutz La'aretz. The only thing I would say why the Nil is different in many ways. Now, the Nil is maybe very similar to the Megillah in that way and in both ways. The Nil, the difference though between the Nil in Esther is that Eretz Yisrael is a very central part of the Nil. Meaning, first of all, you have the Nil davening towards Yerushalayim. Meaning, you have the centrality of Eretz Yisrael expressed even in the Nil. And then you have the prokim of all whatever those interesting stuff that are going on in La'asad in Eretz Yisrael also. So Eretz Yisrael is a subject, it's a noise. And Esther, besides the fact that Mordechai is Menagoyla Asher Hagla, that's it. It's not mentioned, and it's not part of the story. It's not important to the story. It's a story about Yidden somewhere in the Achaemenid Empire, in a kleine Loch. It begins there, it ends there, and that's it. Now, Nevuah, there's no Nevuah in Chutz La'aretz. So, anything that's Nevuah is in Eretz Yisrael, or concerning Eretz Yisrael, the only sefer that is Yecheskel, and Yecheskel is Tzorech Shah, whatever. And even Yecheskel went back and forth in his Mara Nevuah, but to say any Ruach, right? The Ruach took him to Eretz Yisrael. We don't have. There's nothing in Chutz La'aretz. So it's unique in the fact that Hashem's name is not there, and it's unique in the fact that it's a Chutz La'aretz. And we mentioned before, the Gemara says Esther Sof Kol HaNisim. Esther Sof Kol HaNisim. What does that mean? It's the last nes that happens to Klal Yisrael. It's the last nes that made it into Tanach. That's true. But I think this is the Nekudah. Nekudah is like this. Klal Yisrael's story, the Ovis, Mitzrayim, Moshe Rabbeinu, you go into Eretz Yisrael for 1,000 years, they go to Golus. When Klal Yisrael's done with their Golus, sort of, ready to go back to Ba'asheni, there's no Nevuah anymore. Chag Zechari Malachi, they're going to die out in the first few years, they're gone. The institution of Nevuah, closed. Chazal say that Anshe Knesset Gedolah had a deliberate part on that. L'chayre, meaning, it's another shmuz. In any case. So, Nevuah is the communication that we have with Hashem. So we're a bunch of little lost people in a very big world, and we don't understand this world we live in. We don't understand our life. We don't understand our mission. We don't understand anything. And we have a channel of Nevuah. We have a two-way phone that we could pick up the phone and say, look, my kid is sick. What did I do wrong? Go to the Navi. And the Navi's not playing a guessing game with you. Okay? The Navi closes his eyes, maybe falls on the floor, and wakes up 20 minutes later and tells you exactly what you need to fix. It tells you why it happened, what you could do to do whatever. Your kid came home one day to the next, and he has acting weird. You go to the Navi, and the Navi can tell you if it's to go to the doctor. The Navi can tell you to go take him to therapy, or whatever, or he'll tell you, next time don't speak Lashon Hara. And he's not messing with you, okay? Because you'll follow him, it's going to go away. If not Judaism, within the last 5 minutes. Okay, this is how this worked, and that's how a Yid lived in this world. Now again, you know what happened? Sometimes what happened is that the kid didn't break his hand and feet and die and whatever, and then Avi came and said, "Look, if you don't shape up, something bad's going to happen," and nobody listened. Just nobody did. Not as a collective. Why not? Because we're people.
If it's real and true.
Because
Ignorance?
no, not ignorance. Yeah, it's just because life is life, and that guy's just an old grumpy Novi, and just every day I'm doing something else wrong, and he's never happy with us. Did he ever say that I did something right? No, so I'm never gonna make him happy anyway.
But everything he says came true.
Right.
Fine, but you know what else happened? But that's the thing. There's true. That's true. What he says happens, and so maybe when he says something on a personal level, so you listen to him on a personal level. Probably, if the Navi came over to you and called you in and said, "Look, strike two, you're out," I assume you would shape up. But when he comes to shul and he says, "Rabbi Say, look, we had COVID. And COVID, I warned you before something's going to happen. You didn't listen. And now I'm warning you, something bad's about to happen." How many people would listen to him today? How many people would listen to him? As an individual, a lot of people could shape up. As a collective, we do what we do. We have our challenges. Now, the Navi would scream about corruption. He would scream about the way we treat people that are inferior, the people that are subordinate to us, or the way that we, every people have their challenges, right? If a Navi comes and tells us where our, issue is, everyone has excuses. And, he's out of touch and he doesn't know, and maybe he's making it worse than it is, and Hashem is not really that upset. And by the way, there's a Navi down the block saying that nothing bad is going to happen. And that's, by the way, the Simon Muvik of Navi Sheker is that they always say that everything's good. And Yirmiyah has this exchange with Navi Sheker, and Yirmiyah tells him, "Mala tevana sabar, halakad dvar Hashem," meaning, Dvar Hashem is ka'esh. Esh burns, right? Nevuah, if you want to be, now, if you're a Navi Sheker, it's because you're on payroll. Someone's paying you, right? That's why you're doing it. You're doing it because people are going to pay you to tell them good stuff. So if you pay someone, right? If someone's paying you and you tell the guy, "Look, you're a terrible human being and you treat your employees mom's like an animal, and you deserve, Hashem's going to take away all your money," that guy's not getting it. He's going to be kicked off payroll very fast. But if he says, "Oh, it's tremendous about tzedakah," whatever, so these people know how to make their money. So you had many Nevi'ei Sheker. Yirmiyah specifically is very concerned with Nevi'ei Sheker because Yirmiyah is in this situation where it doesn't come in anything. I'm just whatever. Anyway, but Yirmiyah is in this situation where he's that crazy guy on the block. Yirmiyah mamish. When you read Yirmiyah, you feel him. You see the way he sees himself. He's mamish, and he's a doomsday Navi. Everything's going on, everything per business as usual, and he's standing on the street corner just telling everyone, Yerushalayim is going to fall, and there's no shaykhs, and he's yelling and screaming at the top of his lungs. And across the street, there's a guy saying, "We're going to win the war. No issues." It's a big problem. Anyway, so what happens is that we have this channel of Nevuah. And in this Mahalach, we know why good things happen, we know why bad things happen, you know what to fix, you know what to do, and you get constant messages. And by the way, it's not only publicly, collectively. If you have a personal problem, you go to Novi, like Shmuel Novi. Shmuel Novi, the Novi says that Shalom Melech went to him because he lost his asoinus, right? He lost his donkeys, which means that you didn't only go to Novi for. You have many times in Nach, people go to Nevi'im for personal issues, which you have to understand what effect that has on a community, right? We're Avdei Hashem. We're Avdei Hashem, and we live with Dvar Hashem every single day. Living with Dvar Hashem, Hashem is part of your life, and it's a real. If you could wake up in the morning and have your fingers on the pulse, knowing exactly where you are in Hashem's books, imagine you have the benefit of waking up tomorrow morning, and you don't have to guess. You know exactly where you are. You go to Novi, and the Novi can tell you exactly, what am I supposed to do in my life.
How they know who was a Navi Shek and who wasn't?
So there's.
After the fact, it's always easy, right? I mean,
So there's a system.
yeah.
So there's a system of. And there's a system of how you figure out if someone's a Navi or not. Okay, you have to check him out. He has to predict a few things correctly, and and in this period of trial, there's no room for error whatsoever, right? There's no maybe, could have, should have. He has to say things, and they have to happen exactly the way he said. And after you pass the threshold, then he's a Navi. Then you have to take whatever he says.
So how did the Sheker guy become something?
Look,
Some payroll.
a Navi is a profession. Meaning you could be a Navi Sheker, you could be a Navi Emes. A Navi is a profession. A Navi is someone who knows how to transcend. A Navi is not just any guy saying, blabbering it. A Navi is someone who has real spiritual qualities that he could, elevate himself to a different realm and talk out of a whole different perspective. Now, certain people did that, and they taka connected, and Hashem spoke to them, and other people meditated and transcended, and they didn't hear nothing, but they could use their qualities and their certain gifts that they have and certain training that they have, that even if they didn't hear anything, that they could say whatever they want.
They didn't prove themselves to be another.
True, but again, people believe. Again, these people, there was taking no mitzvah to believe them, but people wanted to believe them. You didn't have a mitzvah to believe them, but people wanted to believe them. And Nivei Sheker is an institution that's alive and kicking. Now, like this, if we have to appreciate the difference in the relationship of Ovid Hashem today and then. Because in a world where spirituality is a given, where the connection to Hashem is a given, there's no Amunah classes, because the classes then is not about Amunah, it's about having less Amunah. Because the problem is people have too much Amunah, and they believe that everything was spiritual. And every tree is spiritual, and every mountain is spiritual, and so everything was deified. So, in a world where there's Nevuah, and where there's connection, and where there's Dvar Hashem, Avodas Hashem is just a whole different experience. What happens was that we abused the system. That Hashem sent us Yirmiyah, Yechezkel, Yeshaya, and Amos, and Micha, and we ignored them. We told them where to go. And sometimes we even killed them, like Zechariah, the first Zechariah. So what happens is that if you take, Hashem sends you a Navi, and you ignore him, and Hashem at a certain point said, you know what, forget it, no more, figure it out on your own. And that's probably one of the harshest nevuos that there are in Tanach. That is, Hine Yom Ha'ba'im Num Hashem, V'shlachti Rav Ba'aretz, Lo Rav L'Lechem, Lo Tzam L'Mayim, Ki L'Shmo Ezder Hashem. Probably should have been read on Tisha B'Av. The worst nevuah that was ever given. And that is the nevuah about Hashem deciding that they're seizing the institution of nevuah. Shlachti Rav Ba'aretz. Right? There's going to be a Rav. What's the Rav? Rav Lechem Tzam Lamayim. Pasha D'Shmai Dvar Hashem. You're going to want to know Dvar Hashem. V'no Meyam V'Adyam. And you're going to go from one place to the next. You're not going to find it. And he's describing a world where you're on your own. Right? You lived in my house, you didn't listen to my rules, get out of my house. And now, figure it out on your own. Figuring it out on your own is the most miserable thing in the world because you don't know what anything means. I don't know if I'm good, I don't know if I'm bad. If something bad happened, I don't know why. What do you want from me? Tell me what you want and I'll fix it. I'll do tshuva, just tell me what. That situation of Hashem saying, look, I spoke to you, you ignored me, I'm going to give you the silent treatment. That is the Rav of the Shema Dvar Hashem. Now,
Years ago is this?
this is the beginning of Ayasheni.
Why do we sing it as a song?
Because
Everyone
whoever
else is singing the same thing. Let's get that.
because whoever made the song Pasha doesn't know what the taich is.
He's using that pasuk.
In ich verstehe.
What's his reason?
He's darshaning the pasuk, and the drash is beautiful drash. That there's going to be a tzema and they had the drash, which is beautiful.
The other way around. That since people, he's saying is that it's so much pain, right? That you can't.
Right.
But the Tanach saying is that Mashiach will come when people really want to know Hashem. So
Right.
hard they don't care. Now
Which
they
is
care.
very nice and very
It's another
beautiful.
angle.
But it's
It's a song.
yeah.
He wrote it on his tune.
So the
Like the next passing about it.
yeah Shwekio says. Anyway, so there's fine. So now we have Klal Yisrael. You have the Tkuf of Nevuah closing, and that's it. And with Nevuah, it's not only Nevuah per se, it's the entire idea of Nevuah. And that is an open channel with Hashem and an understanding where you are. And Nisim, right? Part of a Navi is a Navi because of what he represents, because of the Shekhinah that is Nizgala through him. So you come to him with a problem and he can fix it. You come to him with a sick child and he can cure him. And these are things that any story that was said about Reb Shayana is written in Tanach about Elisha. And people that don't like Chassidish stories, a big problem because in Elisha there's stories that are mamash Chassidish Amaises. Came to the Navi, the food is poisoned. Food is poisoned, put it in, the food is not poisoned. Came to the Navi, he has tzaras. Tzaras, go 7 times, go whatever. Right? No tzaras. Tchis amazing. A woman didn't have child. That is Nevuah. That is when Nevuah is when you have that level of connection. And when the significance of Nevuah ceasing is you don't have that anymore.
So how do we have the Rebbe Shemais?
That's another zach.
Next.
So now you have a tkufa where Hashem says, look, you abuse the system, finished. I'm closing it. And what happens is now that Klal Yisrael finds himself in the dark. And now we don't know anything. And now there's no Nisim. We don't know anything anymore. We don't understand our own life. We don't understand anything about. And in that environment is where the story of the Megillah happens. There's no Navi there. And the reason why it doesn't say why the Yidden had a Gzer is because the Megillah doesn't know. Now maybe Esther knows, but she's not telling it to you because that's not the story of Purim. The story of Purim is Sof Kalanesim. The story of Esther is the opening of a new tkufa. Esther is where the Hanhaga is Hanhaga of no nevuah. You're in Golos, you're dealing with your problems, and you have no answers. And you don't see Hashem's name. You don't see Hashem's name, you don't see Hashem's presence, you don't see Hashem's Ashgacha, you don't see anything. All you see is a party. Achashverosh drinking and enjoying himself for 180 days, and it's just a filthy, animalistic, true Persian style, complete indulgence party. And that's it. Not meant to be discussed in any bismedrash near you. And then you have a beauty pageant that definitely shouldn't be mentioned in a show. And then you have minor politics going on over there between people in Achashverosh's court that wanted to assassinate him. That also belongs in the newspaper. And that's the story. The story of the Megillah is our life. How do we live? And the Megillah just tells you, and this is the beauty of the Megillah, is that the Megillah tells you a story that is completely normal from a newspaper perspective. It's a novel. It's a romance. He's right, Martin Luther. It's a romance. And there's no Shem Hashem, there are no Nisim, there's no Schar V'Oinish, there's nothing. But everyone reading it, when we read it, we understand that this is the Nu'an Haga. And what Esther is doing is, Esther is telling the Anshe Knesset Gedolah, the Anshe Knesset Gedolah looked at her and said, we have no business, we have no use for this book. This is not what we do, right? We're trying to preserve the Hanhaga, right? When Anshe Knesset Gedolah, they're not Nevi'im anymore, right? But they're preserving the Kizar HaKodesh. They're preserving whatever was given, that we should tell our kids about Shmuel HaNavi and about Elisha HaNavi and about Moshe Rabbeinu, about all these Schar V'Oinish, about all these ideas. And you're bringing your story, your Maisalach, the nice story, but we have no use for it. And what Esther is arguing is that this is what the Yidden need more than anything else. At this point, moving on in history, what Yidden are going to need more than all your 23 nice books is Megillah Esther. Because the story that is going to be relevant to their lives and their galus, somewhere far away, in their little galus is going to be when you don't see Hashem's name. And you don't see anything of significance. And there's a Gzeira, Klal Yisrael, there's a Holocaust, and nobody knows why. And you sit in a Besmedrash, and you have Reb Shimon Bar Yochai saying that that's why it happened, and you have the other Chachamim say it happened for a different reason, and that is the story. The story is that something bad happened. We are convinced that it happened for some divine reason, but we don't know why. And that is where you see and that's our story. Esther Sof Kalanissim is that she is the opening of the new Tkuf of Klal Yisrael, where there's no openness, there's no open Dvar Hashem, but we make a bracha on that Megillah because we know when we read the Megillah that it's Dvar Hashem. When we say the story that way, then the story is like one big nation from beginning to end. From Achashverosh killing his wife, taking some pathetic advice that he shouldn't have done. Mamish makes no sense. Achashverosh killing his wife for no reason. Picking Esther from everyone. He picked Punkt Esther, and it was a tragedy. Vatilokach Esther. She was dragged, right? Vatilokach, twice it says. Esther did whatever she could not to be chosen. The Big Shadova, and she's chosen. And then a story with Bixam Viseresh. There was a political thing that everyone forgot, including Achashverosh. Everyone forgot. 5 years later, Haman gets a promotion. Has nothing to do with anyone. Haman and Mordechai have their own fight. This is 12 years after Vashti was killed. And here things start falling in place. And when you read the Megillah, you fill in the blanks yourself. And you know, because you have the perspective of a Yid, you have the perspective of the other Chav Gimel Sefer Kodesh. And you know that Achashverosh didn't just kill Vashti for nothing. And you know that Esther wasn't just taken for nothing. You know that Bixar Viseresh, Mordechai didn't just overhear for nothing. And all that coming together, suddenly you see Hashem's name in the Rosh Hashanah. Right? It's the most beautiful thing in the world. Go tell Martin Luther that in the Rosh Hashanah that he can't read. That in the Rosh Hashanah, he probably could read actually, but that's not the point. In the Rosh Hashanah, he definitely can't read the Rosh Hashanah, right? He doesn't know how to find Hashem's name if it's not written out in big bold letters. But in the life of Esther Sof Kalanissim, in the world where you don't see Hashem's name in big bold letters, the avoid of Megillah Esther is to find Hashem's name in the Rosh Hashanah and the Sefer Tevis. And that's what we've done then, and that's what we've done every day since. We don't see Hashem in our lives. You don't see it. You don't have a Navi that tells you, look, you have to shape up so-and-so. You should stop talking about davening, stop talking about Lashon Hara, treat your kids nicer, learn more Torah, daven better. You don't have that. But we have the perspective of Megillah Esther that we connect the dots ourselves. And we look for Hashem's name all over our lives. It's done from the bottom up. We demand it. We want to stay connected. We're fighting our way. We in our mundane, non-Shem Hashem lives are fighting our way into Tanakh. That's really what we're doing. We're all grabbing onto Esther, and through Megillah Esther, our lives are connected. Because we understand that all these little things, nothing happens for nothing. And when you have traumatic events like October 7th and the Holocaust, obviously, we don't know why it happened. There's no nevuah before that why it happened. But you see that Netzach Yisrael Yishaka, and Klal Yisrael's thriving and growing, and their nisim, sometimes mamish nisim giluyim, mamish, like if you read the story of the past from October 7th till now in the Megillah, it puts the Megillah Esther to shame, in my opinion. In the Yad Hashem that's apparent in the Hanhaga of Hashem and Eretz Yisrael, and the way the entire Middle East is transforming. It's mamish biblical in the field. The problem is that we're reading it as a newspaper. We have to stop. What Megillah Esther should teach us is that we should stop reading newspapers as newspapers. You have to read it with the top of the Megillah. Now, you should stop probably reading newspapers altogether, but the Mashanegeya to us, if there's a goy threatening to kill us, there are people that are threatening that despise our existence. Read the story. Read what's going on. Look for the Rosh Hashanah and Sefer Tevis. The probability of when the missiles from Iran were flying, the probability of no one getting, no significant, there were people never killed, but not 100,000 people, which is, statistically the numbers that they're expecting. We have an Iron Dome, right? So we read it already, Achois lanu b'beis hamelech. But what Megillah Esther should teach us is that we have to read all these different events when we don't have Nevuah, but we have Esther. And Esther teaches us that even when you don't see the Shem Hashem, and even when you don't know why good things happen and why bad things happen, what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong, if you do what you have to do, if you stay focused and you find the Dvar Hashem, you find the Dvar Hashem, the Shem Hashem and the Rosh Hashanah and the Sefer Tevis, then the most amazingness will happen. There's no story that is such a big nace as Megillah Esther and Tanach. Now, there's no single event that's a nace, but the fact that Haman built a gallows and 24 hours later he was hanging on those gallows, it's a nace. It's a nace like no other. The fact that the idea of taking off the tabas that was given to him ultimately went to Mordechai. All these ideas that come, there's no probability in these things. It's a nace. From Aleph to Tov, it's a nace. But it's a nace when you read it like that. When you read it in Besmedish with a trop, and you read it with a bracha, then, the Shem Hashem starts, like the Ur V'Tumim, right? It starts shining out at you, and you find it. And that's why Megillah Esther, all the Yom Tovim can be bottled, but Purim can't be bottled, because Purim is our nace. Purim is our story. Purim is the story of a Yidden Golos without Nevuah, some forgotten place, without Dvar Hashem, fighting his way to Dvar Hashem, fighting his way to find Hashem in his life. And that's what we have to do. And that's how we should see the Megillah, we should see Purim, and we should see our own lives. We have to start reading our own lives in a way that there's no coincidence. And the Yad Hashem is moving things around. And that's the beauty. The beauty is that when a Yid cries that there's no Nevuah, and he's saying, Hashem, you're not present in the world. And Hashem says, wait a little. And 10 years later, Hashem says, I'm not present. What do you mean I'm not present? You think Vashti just dies? You think, wait, I'm present before, 8 years before Haman had his promotion, I was moving pieces. Bixam Viserys story is before Haman's promotion. It says before Haman was anybody, I was moving pieces because I knew who you're going to be. And that's what we have to understand. Hashem is moving pieces for us while we're sleeping, while we're complaining that He's not here, and while we're kvetching, and while we're doing, Hashem is moving. He moved the pieces already. Now, what's very beautiful in the Megillah is that even though all these pieces are in the right place, you need Esther to do what she does, you need Mordechai to do what he does. Hashem has everything figured out for you. You just have to you have to do you. Esther did her thing, right? She was Moisei Nefesh. Kasher vadati avadati. If she had not been Moisei Nefesh, then all these pieces that would have been there, I don't know what would have happened to them. And Mordechai is convinced, now, he's probably right. I can't argue with him. But I don't know if we would have had a Megillah that would have told the story. Hashem probably sets it up in many different ways. These magicians that do tricks, that they have a few options, right? They have a few different tricks. They have a few different options. So they'll only reveal the one that worked out, right? If they have 3 cards, they're only going to reveal the one that worked, right? But they also had 2 other ones just in case that one didn't work. I don't know what their alternative. I don't know what it would have been. But Hashem had infinite different scenarios where He set up an infinite amount of cases that could have worked out. But what happened is that Esther showed up, and Esther was Meister Nefesh, and through her mysterious Nefesh, she brought the Gula to Klal Yisrael. And so, the moral of the story is that we have to read Hashem into our own lives. Look for Him, you'll find Him. If you're going to kvetch, you won't find Him. But if you look for Him, you'll find Him, and you'll see that He's moving pieces. But it demands from you action. It demands from you do something, do the right thing, and hopefully we'll be zoichet to have a life of Purim, not only one day of Purim. Sorry. So there was the Chassidim of the Tzemach Tzedek, I think it was, sitting together, and they were in a kreitchman. So there's a bunch of chaver from all the Sachrim. They were all there, and there's a bunch of Sachrim there, and we were Mesnagdim, Chassidim. And the Chassidim got up, and everyone said stories and mofsim of their tzaddik. Fine. So this Chassid gets up and he says, "There's once a few years ago, I had a deal. I had a big offer. I went to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said I shouldn't do it. Fine, and I didn't do it. I went to the Rebbe again, and it was such a good offer. And I asked him, and the Rebbe said I shouldn't do it, and I didn't do it. No, and what happened? He wanted. I think there was logging. They were buying forests and whatever. And he says, I didn't buy it. And that year there was no wood, and the price of wood went up 8 times. I could have made a killing. Ad kind of all the misnagdim are sitting there, and they're like, "Knows what's the moifus? What's the catch?" She says the moifus. The moifus is with machoset. It's a new type of story, right? Not everyone can say that story. And that l'chayre is ba'omek what the conflict over here is, because Esther is bringing a new type of story, and no one's chapping her story. That's the resistance that she has, is because no one's chapping her story. And Esther's point is, meaning throughout the thin and thick and throughout the whatever, we stayed, and this is the new story. And she's telling the rabbis, I get used to this type of story, because this is the new story. So you want to know, when I'm stuck in the middle of the story, that goof is the good. Esther's talking to you. Esther wants you to take her story and apply it to your life and say, look, this, like what he said, it took 12 years from beginning to end. And the end of the story is Bishnas, I don't remember what it was. What? No, from Vashti's party,
No, he's 14, so it's 3 minus
from
14.
3 to 12 is right. So you're talking about what, 12 years, and it's 9 years, and it's this huge story, right? And you're caught somewhere in the middle, and you're kvetching about.
No, but even after, that's what I'm saying now, that the Chazru at the end, Kimu v'Kiblu, right? They were Kalter v'Yahava, right? The whole.
So Kimu v'Kiblu is like this. The struggle at the end of the Megillah about Kimu v'Kiblu is that whoever was B'doyrei Shel Esther appreciated that there was something special. But the shaila is, in order to canonize something, in order to make this a day in the calendar, there has to be something that's relevant forever. Right? There's no nisim. There's a nace here, a nace there. Nisim are very nice. But B'ditchev in Chanukah is very busy with this, and it's a moving nekuda, and it's very intuitive. It's moving. B'ditchev says that the nisim, there's so many nisim in Tanach. We don't have Yom Tovim for them. And Nisim that happened for the entire Klal Yisrael, Sisera and Secherev and others. Nisim that the whole entire Klal Yisrael was in a dangerous situation. Then there's no nest commemorating them. And his point is that the Anshkan Segdola or the Nevi'im, whoever it was, if they saw that the Iris came down again, right? Basically like this. If they saw that the Nace is a nace that the Iris come down every year, so then they were made a Yom Tov. That's why it says B'Chanukah L'Shana Cheres come. Now, Ba'omek, in what we're saying, is that what does the Iris coming down mean? The Iris coming down means that the shad is if this is relevant. Is your story relevant, or is at one time? I have a friend that composed a song. He called a lot of singers. He wanted them to take the song, and most of them didn't even listen to him. One singer, I don't remember who it was, gave him the time of day. He listened to the song, and I thought it was mamish beautiful the way he told it to him. He said, "Look, Chazal say that there were Nevi'im kiflaim kietz mitzrayim. There was endless amount of Nevi'im. How many Nevi'im do we know of? In a good day, Memches. Half of the Memches, we don't even know why they're Nevi'im, but there's 20 Nevi'im that we know of. Let's say 25. Now, what's the difference? So Chazal say the Nevuah hatzrich the we have, and we're not tzrich. So he told them, look, the song is like a Nevuah. It's a Nevuah that's connects to everyone, that's that everyone can feel, and that is a Nevuah for the entire Klal. So then there's Nevuah that is personal to this Navi. It doesn't mean it's not a Nevuah. This is a Nevuah to you. He says, I don't think there's a Nevuah for the entire Klal. There's a Nevuah for you, and it's a Choshev Azach, and you should cherish it. I think it's nice. It's a very nice way of telling. Look, because someone had to tell him, right? But the idea is that a Yom Tov, a nace that it's a one time. She had a nace, whooping. So there's a nice nace, but a nace, and that's really the conflict, because Esther's timing that this is a Nevuah Tzrich L'Doros. This story, it's not a Nevuah, but the story is Tzrich L'Doros, because this is the new reality. No, and they had a resistance accepting this idea, because again, this is a process, and then eventually Klal Yisrael came to a situation where Kimu v'Kimu Yehudim, that they were makabel, and they were makabel means that they accepted this perspective, and they accepted to make a new Yom Tov, a new type of Yom Tov, a Yom Tov that is here to and that's why you dress up on Purim. It's a minik, a very late minik, but it's a minik Yisrael Torah to dress up on Purim. What's the idea of dressing up on Purim? So the Gemara already says that the reason why Hashem was Meichel Klal Yisrael was because it was Nizgala that Heim Le'osah Le'lefanu, that they never meant it. The idea of Hashem looking at Klal Yisrael that way, that they never meant it, is beautiful. It's mamish beautiful. It means that even Klal Yisrael was Choyte. They never meant to be Choyte. Which gives you this entire idea that there's two levels to everything. And I think the word is that if we read Hashem, if we're willing to give Hashem this more complex and different perspective, that we see, look, okay, you have one anhaga of Teva, and in this anhaga there's nothing special going on, but we know and we believe that there's something deeper than that. We believe that you're hiding. But is a terrifying pasuk. Hashem is saying, I'm going to hide. And that day is not a good day when Hashem's Galus is hidden. Right? Because, what? Yeah. It's a horrible situation, right? Because it means that Hashem's presence is not here. When Hashem's presence is not here, it's the worst day in the world, right? A good day is Yisa Hashem Panav Elechem, right? Yo'er Hashem Panav Elechem. That is Gewalt, Sheba Gewalt. The worst day is when Echaz has to Panav B'Yamo. When Echaz has to Panav B'Yamo, it's terrible. Everything's going to go wrong in that day because Hashem's presence is not there and it's not felt. Now, what Klal Yisrael says is that even though you're not there, and even Esther Menatorim Minayin, that's the entire Yesod of Esther. The entire Yesod of Esther is that when you say, when Hashem says, I'm going to hide, Klal Yisrael says, we're not going to give you a break. We're going to find you. We're going to look for you. We're going to look for you in the Rosh Hashanah. We're going to look for you in the Sefer. We're going to find you. We're going to run after you. And that is, And what that does is that Hashem says, look, if you're willing to go that far, and even when you don't see me bezgalas, and you're willing to look deeper and to look with a different perspective, then I'll look at you the same way. And I'll look at you and I'll say, look, on the outside you look like an obnoxious, terrible person. But the second glance, you had a difficult childhood and you never meant it. And you had it was a mismanaged. I remember it was mamish, like just sometimes you have these Chofetz Chaim moments that are mamish scream to you. So it was a mismanaged and two guys were having a conversation. I don't know if it was a very civil conversation, but it was arguing. This is not here, this is in Israel. No, it's talking not here. Here it wouldn't be so civil. Kids, they're mamish arguing. Now I know one of the guys. He has a miserable life. Now no one knows because he's suffering in silence or shtickle, but he has a very difficult situation at home. Now, so they were arguing, and this guy just lost it. He mamish lost it. He started talking like so. He got personal with this other guy. He was just yelling. It was terrible. And this other guy was like, came out of nowhere, and the guy started attacking him. Nothing. So I was standing on the side, and I know because I know this guy's life, and I know what's going on, and I know that he's suffering. So I understand the entire picture. Now everyone else looks at him like a Meshuggah. He's not a Meshuggah. He's a very normal guy. He's a guy that has no peace in his life. Now, if you know the fact that he doesn't have peace in his life, everything makes sense. Now that's someone you care about, or someone that you know you're willing to go that far. Usually you don't go that far. I don't know if you have to, maybe. I don't know if everyone's the Chofetz Chaim, but we all want Hashem to give us that type of perspective. So we have this relationship where you could either go through the world and say, look, Hashem, you're not present. You checked out of my life. My whole life is upside down. You know where to be found. I finish. When you need money, you call me, and now you know where to be found, right? And in that situation, Hashem says, look, it's not like you look that good anyway, so let's call a spade a spade. You're terrible. I'm finished. I have no reason to spend any time with you. But then there's the Yid that says, look, Hashem, I'm not taking this silent treatment. I'm going to run after you. I'm going to nudge you until I'm going to force you to talk to me. And I'm going to pursue this, and I'm going to look for you. And what that brings is that Hashem says, okay, there's a deeper relationship. If it's all not on face value, then the entire world suddenly is an illusion, because Hashem's, the whole teva, we understand is a cover up, and Hashem is hiding under that, and the whole Yid is a cover up, because really his neshama is just thirsty, and his neshama is wants fulfillment, and all the garbage that he's engaging in is just because he's sick, because he wants fulfillment. And Purim is when Klal Yisrael and Hashem see each other on that level. I think that's why we get dressed up. We get dressed up to represent this idea that everything is just that everything you see is just a costume, and it's all fake. And there's a deeper level to everything. And in that deeper level, that's really where we want our relationship with Hashem to be. That is that deeper level where Hashem looks at us and sees that you're more than what your actions. Your actions imply that you're a terrible person, and you're and you're an enemy, but I know, which is absolutely crazy bonkers, that the fact that Hashem says also and the fact that we're an enemy, right? Think about it. They were sitting there fressing, and Hashem says they didn't really enjoy it. Also what do you mean? The guy's fressing a cowboy steak, and he's saying he didn't mean it. He absolutely meant it. I never saw anyone eating a steak and not meaning it, right? So I think it goes on both. I found Lachron for sure it goes on both. But it's the whole hanhag of chet, right? The whole idea of chet. So Hashem says, look, he didn't mean it. And the second you see that, look, the question is like this. If you believe in Yiddish and Neshama, then you believe that no matter what, he doesn't mean it. It's because, like you see kids that are struggling, right? So if you see a 40-year-old guy struggling is one thing. You see a 13-year-old kid struggling, and unfortunately, if you open your eyes, you'll see them all over the place. And mom is struggling when it's struggling. I mean, with the Shema before, then no matter how bad this 13-year-old kid is, anyone now again, you might have to institutionalize your child. You might have to do a lot of radical things, but no one's going to say this kid's 13. It can't be bad. It didn't live long enough to be bad. This kid is in tremendous pain. So no matter how bad, even if it's a kid that he could cheat the system, because his father is not only his father, anyone that has a Yiddish heart is always going to say that this kid that's on drugs on the corner and tattooed and who knows what. Anyone in their right mind is going to say, look how much, and the more bad they are, all we're going to say is, look how much pain they're in. There must be so much more pain. It's not going to make you bad. If you want to be bad, it's not going to work. You're not going to be bad. Now, if you want to have a relationship with Hashem, then hurting him and hurting yourself is not conducive. So the child that wants a relationship, look, if you want sympathy, Hashem has sympathy. Not every day on Purim, he might have more sympathy than on other days. But if you want a relationship, then you can't be a hypocrite, right? You have to see Hashem as much as he sees you. It's a mirror. So if that's how it works. You can't say, look, if Hashem, if that's your shtick that I didn't mean it, then I'll go do whatever I want, and you'll always say that I didn't mean it. You know what Hashem says? I will say that you didn't mean it because I know you, and I know that you didn't mean it. And even if you're running away and whatever it is, you're trying to fulfill something that you'll never be able to fulfill. You'll be miserable, and you'll come looking for me, and I'll be waiting for you. But if you want a relationship, you're not going to have a relationship with Hashem like that. So, going through our galus, the value of Esther is, and this is going back to your point, because sometimes we don't see the end of the Megillah, right? We're still in the beginning. We're in the Bixam Seresh. We're in maybe Chalida. Some people are mamish caught up in the midst of the Gzeir. That's terrible. It's mamish a terrible, terrible massive. It's heartbreaking. But when such a person reads the Megillah, it's what I said before, that the worst thing isn't as much the bad day as it is the randomness of a bad day. That if Hashem is there in a bad day, which is a very interesting pasuk. Why? What changed? The Ra is the same Ra, right? It's Ra. He's not saying he's not in the gates of Mavis. He's in the gates of Mavis. He's in the valley of the shadow of death. He's still there. Nothing changed. The only thing that changed is his understanding that Hashem is there also. Now, why does that change anything? It changes because it's meaningful. If someone's suffering and someone's going through a hard day, and you know that it means something, and it's not random, and it's not for a lack of the Shem Hashem, then your pain means something. Your pain is heard. It's under control. And look, and that's what the doctor prescribed. Not always could the pain be, removed, or there's only that much where there's some stories we see come full circle, and some we don't, and some maybe our kids will see come full circle, and then our pain was meaningful because our kids had a beautiful life. So the story of the Megillah doesn't say that you today live the Purim story, meaning the end of the Purim story. It means that you're stuck somewhere in the middle. And if you'll take inspiration from Esther, and you're going to see the fact that Hashem is present even when his name is not there, and even when his ideas are not there, obvious, and even when it's Mamish Hanochi Aster Aster as Pana B'Yamahu. If you read into that, then you'll have koyach to go through your life with emunah and betochen, and with Hashem there. Ki'ato Yimodi. It's Mamish Ki'ato Yimodi. And it's a completely different experience, right? If something's random, like the poor, right? The poor of Haman is random. That's sort of like the tragedy of the idea The Klal Yisrael is going to die in a day just because their Olam dies, right? But
You're still only seeing it after the fact.
and then, let's talk about then. Then, a girl is the most random, by definition, by function, right? It is randomness in itself, right? Now, how beautiful is it? This is just a tiny, tiny, tiny detail in the Megillah that the girl was, the poor was, on Yud Gimel Nisan. If there's a poor Machodesh Lachodesh, Miyam Liyam Lachodesh Lachodesh, if there's a poor Miyam Lachodesh Lachodesh, then the furthest date this could be is Yud Gimel Adar, right? Because from Yud Gimel, if you're doing months, the furthest month from now is Yud Gimel Adar. So in the most random detail in the entire Megillah, there's the most beautiful Hashgacha.
Like the Yud Beis Nisan?
No, I'm not talking about that. If it's on days of, it's on Yud Gimel, right? It's on Yud Gimel Shabbat, because I see it was on Yud Gimel. I'm assuming that it was a poor for months. And if that's the case, then it's there's maybe that's why Al Ken Purim Al Shem HaPur, which is why such an interesting, like, why would you call the entire story Al Shem HaPur?
It's 1 out of 12. It's not such a.
True, but it's the furthest one. Again, it's random, but it's the furthest one which gives the Yidden the most time to prepare. It could have been a month later. It gives them time to prepare spiritually and militarily. And no, you don't want to give them time. If you're telling people that you're killing them, one thing you don't want to give them is time. Now, Haman gave it up to chance. And Hashem, in that very Nakuda, orchestrated just this very little detail. Is it so? Would have been so terrible? Would have been Yud Gimel Shabbat? I don't know. But this Nakuda itself is Kula Yashgacha. The fact is that you're playing around. It's the furthest day possible. And that is where we have to, if we're Purim, we read into even the most random thing in the world, like a girl, we read Hashgacha into. That's the anhaga that we live on Purim. That's what we have to understand in our own lives. And if you're stuck, so it's two things. First of all, it's machayev you to connect the dots in your own life. The things, finding where things worked out. The problem is that we're almost naturally programmed that we take these things for granted. Like, no one here thought about their teeth today if they don't have root canals, because you take that for granted, because if it works, then it's supposed to work. And that's the way, and maybe that's the way we're supposed to live, maybe. But when it happens in life, we also, like, if the deal punked work, and if the guy that I was looking for was punked there, and if the shidduch that didn't happen, and eventually that shidduch that didn't happen, the different shidduch happened or whatever, you don't live with that. And that's one thing. It's machayev you to connect the dots in life. And then the shidduch that didn't happen and you're stuck, where you can't connect the dots presently, that's where you have to read the Megillah and understand that in so many points in the Megillah, they just didn't see where they're going, but they didn't give up. And that's what we have to take from them. Very good.